What is up, everybody? I'm No Lux Given here with your afternoon snap, and today I'm going to showcase what I think are the craziest games with the craziest deck I have ever played in Marvel Snap. I showcased this deck 2 days ago while Project Pegasus was the featured location, and since then I added Odin to the deck. And it just gets even crazier from there, being able to get multiple uses out of Legion, Absorbing Man, Arnim Zola, Beast, Snowguard. All of these things have made for some extremely impressive games. Props to my opponent for this first game, by the way, who's playing Agatha, which was another one of my recommendations on Snap Fan as a way to take advantage of Project Pegasus while it was the featured location, but that's not even gonna come close to cutting it. If my opponent's taken advantage of Project Pegasus, I don't want to say what I am doing to this location, because we are going crazy with it, using Legion and then Absorbing Man on Legion to just make multiple Project Pegasi here, and then Arnim Zola to get even more activations off of it. It goes absolutely crazy. Was trying to find a way to weave in Nico to draw some additional cards maybe for this one, but the energy just lines up well enough that I just decided to play Living Tribunal this turn and set myself up for a really big Sunspot. So that's the plan here. My opponent's going to use Taskmaster to copy Agatha. So they are doing some really sweet stuff with Agatha, and then they also get to play a Doctor Doom with all of the extra energy that I gave them. And I'm going to give them a ton more energy. Agatha decks typically play a bunch of big cards, so we're just feeding my opponent a bunch of extra energy here to dump out all of those expensive cards from their hand. But we're going to be able to play some expensive cards of our own, in addition to making the biggest Sunspot that I have ever created, and that's because on this turn we draw Odin. So now I get to play Arnim Zola and Odin on this turn, and then Arnim Zola might hit Odin, it might hit the other of Absorbing Man and Legion. And I should say I learned a lot while playing this deck. I learned a bunch of stuff and forgot a bunch of stuff that will never be relevant again with Absorbing Man and Odin and Beast and how all of these crazy cards interact. We are going to see a fast forward this turn because we just have way too many Legion animations. Like I said, my opponent a pretty good sport here on all of the craziness that we're doing. We Arnim Zola out the Absorbing Man, and then Odin comes in, triggers Legion again, and then is going to trigger Arnim Zola again, and that's actually going to send Odin to both of the locations, which triggers Absorb Man 2 more times, and then the Legion makes 2 more Project Pegasus, and then also triggers Beast, returning Living Tribunal and Odin and Absorbing Man all to my hand. Now it's the final turn of the game. 46 more energy is going to get soaked up into Sunspot, and I think because so much happened in this game, or because my opponent was a nice enough sport to just let me play it out here, but I'm going to go with so much happened in this game that they just forgot about the Living Tribunal with all of these animations and speed ups and that returning to my hand. So let's go with that. My opponent forgot about Living Tribunal here, which is going to allow me to distribute this over 100 power from Sunspot. Actually, it's going to get up to over 150 power by the end of this turn. We're going to be able to distribute that across all 3 locations to find ourselves the win as Odin triggers the Legion and the Arnim Zola. I made sure to play Odin before I played the Living Tribunal because we are going to Odin into the Beast again and rebounce that Odin, in addition to doing a bunch of other crazy stuff this turn, ending this turn with 73 energy. That is all going right into that Sunspot to bring it up to 158 to give me 67 power across all 3 locations. We're going to look at a few more games in this video, but this was definitely the biggest Sunspot that I was able to create. And the other thing that I wanted to point out too, like, I probably could have played Wong to get even bigger sunspots, but as you can see, this deck got me up to rank 97. When I started playing with this deck, I was not even Omega rank, and I was able to use it to get all the way up to almost infinite. Ran out of time before I was quite able to hit infinite, but I think this was a pretty sweet deck and had a bunch of other alternative ways that you could win with it that I'm not necessarily going to showcase in this video. I just want to showcase the big fun plays that I was able to put together, and that first game was, I think, the biggest Sunspot play that I could find that also showcased Odin very well. This was probably the second biggest Sunspot that I made. As you can see, we've got Absorbing Man, Odin, and Arnim Zola. We just need to find the Sunspot, and if we can do that, then we can certainly make a big one here. So I'm going to snap when the Legion goes off, and wave is also going to, this is the new wave that will now allow me to play even more cards here, because Sunspot will still only cost 1, and then I can still play out everything else in this same turn. So we're going to be able to make a huge Sunspot here. Just kind of have to figure out the order. Like I said, this was kind of a learning process for me as I was playing this deck. Sometimes I forget about the fact that Absorbing Man, the card that it copies, has to still be in play. So if Arnim Zola destroys Odin, then Absorbing Man won't be able to copy Odin. So probably should have played Absorbing Man first. Also, unfortunately, my opponent Alioth's my Sunspot in this game, so I am going to be making a really big Sunspot, but unfortunately it's on my opponent's side of the battle here, as they have a Sunspot and I do not. So I don't think my opponent quite saw what I was going to be doing with Alioth, but yeah, they were able to find my Sunspot, which they didn't quite realize maybe just how good that was for them at the time, because now they're going to have an absolutely massive Sunspot. No target for that Absorbing Man, but still 45 power gets to get soaked up into Sunspot that turn. And now my opponent has Daredevil Sight for this turn, which is certainly awkward. Yeah, there's my opponent basking in the sunshine there, basking in that glory. It is awkward that they have Daredevil Sight and I'm just gonna run out my hand, but I have all the energy this turn, so I kind of have to play these cards, and I'm just gonna play them to the 2 side locations so that way my opponent can't Odin their Alioth, and this should still be enough to find a victory. They're gonna have a ton of power in their 3rd location, but we're gonna have a ton of power split up across all 3 locations, which I think should make it difficult enough for my opponent to find the victory here with Onslaught plus Iron Man. It's a nice little backup, and Living Tribunal allows me to distribute that. So I think we are still going to be okay here, and after seeing that, my opponent is going to wind up retreating on this final turn. This game was one of my favorites because I really did not get to make great use out of Project Pegasus. Didn't have the Serra, didn't have the Legion for when it first showed up, so I just played Living Tribunal turn 1, which is a line that you have to take with the deck. Living Tribunal turn 1 means you can turn 5 Iron Man, turn 6 Onslaught, and when my opponent snaps on turn 4, I kind of know it's coming. You can't do this anymore, but on the old patch you could still Shang-Chi a Living Tribunal. So now I've got nothing on the field, which is why I said this is one of my favorite games. Just a turn 5 Legion onto Project Pegasus is going to totally flip this game on its head still. My opponent Loki's me, so they're going to be able to do some nice stuff here themselves. And we're also going to give them a bunch of energy to make some crazy plays happen, but hopefully we can make some even crazier plays happen. This is the final turn of the game as well, but we're going to be able to Absorbing Man and then Odin on that Legion, which is going to give me still a huge Sunspot, and then I'm going to Iron Man into that location with everything else. So I'm going to have a huge Sunspot, and then I'm going to have 15, 19, 38 power from that Iron Man. So that's the plan. We'll see if it is good enough here. We're also going to pump up my opponent's mojo. And like I said, they're going to have my entire deck plus, well, not my entire deck, but they're going to have a bunch of cards from my deck plus a bunch of energy to be able to throw those cards out there. But I was able to draw some additional cards from Nico, which is allowing me to put all of this together with those extra energies from Sunspot. My opponent plays Onslaught for Mojo, Odin for Maria Hill. That's not really going to get them any extra power there. And then America into the other Project Pegasus location. And I already did the math. We've actually won this game. My opponent doesn't quite know what is in store for them here, but we are going to make a bunch more Project Pegasi with Legion, Absorbing Man, and Odin now added to the deck with Iron Man to just put that a little bit over the top. And then we'll have a 30 power Sunspot as my last card. My opponent at this point is probably pretty confident that they are actually going to win this game. They would lose to like Alioth or something here, but they probably weren't expecting a 30 power Sunspot to take it. So I thought that one was particularly sweet. I thought this one was a fun one to end the video on as well. We've got the Sunspot on turn 1 and then turn 2 Project Pegasus. So we'll be able to throw Legion out there and then we'll be able to Odin the Legion and just get a huge Sunspot. So I'm snapping here on turn 2, feeling pretty good. My opponent has got a Quinjet, probably another Loki list. Which is what makes this game particularly fun. They've got Collector plus Snow Guard and then Falcon for a little bit of bouncing here, pump up their Collector a little bit more. Then I'm going to Legion, so I'm going to give them plenty of opportunity to play all of these cards. I had Falcon in the list previously because I thought, you know, I'd have enough time to replay all of the 1-cost cards myself. Ultimately, Odin has been a lot more fun. So I'm glad that I decided to go this Odin route eventually here. This turn, I go for Sarah plus Onslaught. I'm not sure if I've showcased this yet, but this is just another fun way that you can take advantage of all of the Project Pegasus energy, which I think makes this deck a lot more consistent than playing something like Wong. It just gives you, like you already want to play Onslaught because it's great with Iron Man as just a way to get like huge power in one location to then win the game with Living Tribunal. And Sarah is just, it gives you a lot more flexibility out of these Project Pegasus turns in case you draw your cards in a weirder order. And in this scenario, I get to play both the Onslaught and the Sarah this turn, and now I can follow it up with a turn 4 Odin onto Legion to continue the Project Pegasus going. I would love to play Nico this turn while it's on the double card mode, so that way I could get like another Odin or something. So a little bit of a bummer that I wasn't able to take full advantage of that, but we're still going to be able to now Absorbing Man the Odin, which isn't as many triggers as if I were to go Legion Absorbing Man Odin. That would be more. Just take my word for it. There's a lot going on in this deck, but we will still be able to Absorbing Man the Odin, and then I could Arnim Zola the Sunspot. But I don't want to do that just yet. My opponent Loki'd and took all my cards, and then they played an Onslaught center. So I'm a little bit afraid of them playing an Iron Man next to that Onslaught. That would make things really tricky because then they're going to have too much power in that center location, and I'm actually not going to have enough power in my Sunspot to battle against them. So before I play this Arnim Zola, I want to see what my opponent has got up their sleeves on this turn after we go through a few more Project Pegasus triggers and we see that they do, in fact, have an Iron Man here. So that's going to be a ton of power. It even gets a little bit more power from the Elsa, puts them up to 104 in that center location, plus another Onslaught on the right. However, if we look at this board, and we break it down, I don't think my opponent can actually stay in this game. They're only beating me, but like, they know that Iron Man is in my deck. They just took my Iron Man and played it. So they have to be thinking that I could play Iron Man in Project Pegasus, at which point they just lose. So I think the only way that my opponent actually stays in this game is that if they also stole my Living Tribunal. And if they did steal my Living Tribunal, we can actually still win this game by using Arnim Zola on Sunspot and then just hoping that my opponent plays Living Tribunal. So this one was a little bit risky, but we'll see. My opponent plays their final card into Project Pegasus. We're gonna Arnim Zola to double up on those Sunspots, losing in that center location, but they do have the Living Tribunal to distribute their power evenly, whereas my power is heavily in those first two locations with 0 power in that third location. I just thought this was a fun game as a fun way to outsmart Loki, if nothing else. There's the deck list with Odin in it, and there is Lily. That's gonna be it for me today. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm No Lux Given. Peace.